Hi, my name's Joan Fasanella.
I'm Diane Gurnea.
I'm Marnie Baker, and we've been frog monitoring since 2010. We've picked the location based on kind of where we know the frogs are. Orland Grassland is an upland prairie where we have several ponds. It takes about 20 minutes to walk to the first pond, and then we have 2 other ponds on this particular route. It's a calling frog program. So we are not out at night trying to identify a leopard frog by its spots. We are actually listening for the individual calls of those frogs.
We listen for 5 minutes, and one of us brings a stopwatch or a smartphone. We are listening mostly for how many frog voices we hear, whether they are one particular species or several. And we try to make out if we hear one voice, we hear 2 voices, or a chorus of them.
When I heard about frog monitoring, I got so excited because frogs are such an important part of ecosystems everywhere. They occupy the most important part in the food chain. They are in the middle. So they eat or are eaten. And if that middle part is taken away, the ecosystem collapses.
A frog is one of those sentinel species that is going to give you information about your environment. Its skin is just going to let everything through. It's just like thin tissue paper. So it's going to be the first guy to get hit with any kind of environmental change. And if he's yelling to you, I'm in trouble, if I'm down to just maybe a couple of my species that are left, well, that needs to be documented. And somewhere along the way, hopefully that information is going to be raising an alarm, about the quality of the environment.
The thing with frog monitoring is that the temperature has to be just so. We have 3 different periods in which we monitor frogs. In the first period, the weather has to be warmer than 45 degrees for several days. The next section, the temperature has to be warmer than 55 degrees. And the third and last section, the temperature has to be above 65 degrees. You can go out in March and start frogging if the temperature is over 45 degrees. There are frogs that come out. And here in the Midwest, it's been a long, cold, hard winter. And knowing that frog monitoring is coming is thrilling. So we start to get excited knowing that spring is really coming. So it gives you hope. The other part I like is to be out at night on 1,000 acres where it's pitch black. It's really quite a powerful experience when you're the only ones out there and nature is just being nature.
Although we have busy streets right next to Orland Grassland, if you get out there far enough, it's so quiet and peaceful. It's almost like a surreal experience.
The land has got so many little different micro-environments all along the way. These dips and swales and rises. The wind changes. Because we're out there at night, you can feel coming from those plants a tremendous amount of transpiration. So there's always this humidity around you. The other thing is how hummocky, how on the soles of your feet, you really are feeling that glacial till clay. And then you hear the insects. You could just take your microphone out there and just listen to this background, like a little symphony out there of all these guys all chattering away. And I think people driving by would never get that. They think it's just a bunch of grass. At the worst, they would call it, an acreage of weeds.
I kind of look at it as an adventure. I'm going to go out someplace nice and quiet. I'm going to go out there and listen. Because we are out there at night, it muffles our vision. And because we don't see as much, now our ears are really picking up and making up the difference.
It's the most thrilling thing to actually hear the frogs sing. Because we're not actually counting, we're not looking, we're listening for the frogs' calls. And to stop and to listen for 5 minutes, who does that in their daily day?
When you start doing this frog monitoring stuff or any other kind of monitoring, you find yourself doing the same thing. You pay attention to the types of plants, at the terrain that we were talking about before, the weather conditions. What bird is that we hear in the background that we're talking about for 15 minutes? What could that be?
We see night birds, we've heard bats, and I guess the coyotes are the most compelling of all because we hear them calling, we hear them barking, and we hear them in groups not too far from us. We also see their eyes because we take our flashlights across the grassland and look for them.
Joan and I were out there on the pond that was paralleling LaGrange Road. It was very quiet. It was very late, pitch dark, and we had our flashlights. So we were coming across the pond and we could hear splashing. We realized, we knew that there were coyotes out there. We thought, what's making all that splashing? There's no way the deer are flopping around. We also had the flashlights catching their eyes at us. We could see the glows of their eyes. And I made a comment to Joan. I said, I think we're being flanked. And Joan, without hesitation, starts making a lot of clapping sounds, yelling, banging, clapping, and they weren't leaving. And so Joan and I decided to howl. And when we howled, that was it. They were gone. But it gave us a lot of respect, for us being out there in the dark. And next time, what should we do?
We're doing this for the frogs. We're not doing it because we get really excited about going out there at night, although we do. It's really to study the frogs and how they're faring in this disrupted universe that they live in.
You feel like you're documenting an animal that is in dire straits. It's only the three of us, sometimes maybe a fourth one, that is just doing this right now in this time block, in this spot for these animals.
As much as I would like to save the Great Barrier Reef, I am not able to do that. I can send money, but gee, wouldn't it be better if I used that money and put gas in my car and go right into my neighborhood, right into Orland Grassland, and do restoration work in my own backyard? And I think if you can do that work and bring the land back to a healthy environment, it's a precious gift. It's a precious gift.